For more than 3 centuries, the British monarchy has lived with a rule so absolute that it seemed eternal. The sovereign must be Protestant, and Catholicism, once the faith of England's kings, was pushed beyond the palace gates. That boundary was written in law after the Glorious Revolution of 1688 and reinforced by the Act of Settlement in 1701. It became part of the Crown's identity. The throne and Rome could never be reconciled. And yet now, in the twilight of her 92 years, Catherine, Duchess of Kent, has forced the monarchy to face what once seemed impossible. Her death, peaceful and surrounded by family, carries a final request that will echo into history: a Catholic funeral. With that decision, her quiet life has become the spark for a symbolic rupture at the very heart of royal tradition. The last goodbye that rewrites history. The announcement from Kensington Palace was delivered with solemn dignity. Catherine, the royal family's oldest member, had passed away. The palace emphasized her peaceful departure, but beneath the respectful tone lay a truth of extraordinary weight. Her farewell will not be shaped by the liturgy of the Church of England, but by the Catholic rites she chose in life. This is not a detail of protocol. It is a message that the monarchy itself is capable of bending, however reluctantly, to the will of personal conviction. Catherine's funeral is not just the closing chapter of one life. It is the collision of centuries of history, law, and identity with the simple, unwavering faith of one woman. A duchess in the shadows. To understand the power of this moment, one must look at the woman herself. Catherine was not born into the Windsor dynasty. She came to it through marriage, joining the family as the wife of Prince Edward, Duke of Kent, a cousin to Queen Elizabeth II. Unlike many who entered the royal circle, she never craved attention or glory. Her life was marked by humility. She supported charities, worked quietly in the arts, and, most famously, taught music in state schools under the plain name Mrs. Kent. Her students often had no idea that their teacher carried a royal title. For Catherine, service meant something beyond pageantry. It meant disappearing into the lives of others, giving without demanding recognition. But humility does not mean insignificance. In 1994, Catherine made a choice that would set her apart forever. She converted to Catholicism, becoming the first member of the royal family in more than 3 centuries to embrace Rome. For most of Britain, the news was a curious footnote. For historians, it was a tremor in the bedrock of the monarchy. Centuries of suspicion. Why did this matter so much? Because the Crown and Catholicism have a history of blood and betrayal. England once stood proudly Catholic. The medieval kings, from Edward the Confessor to Henry VI, prayed to Rome, received papal blessings, and built churches in loyalty to the Vatican. But all of that collapsed under Henry VIII. His break with Rome in the 16th century was not merely theological, it was political survival. By founding the Church of England, Henry tied the monarchy's legitimacy to Protestantism. From that moment on, Catholicism was branded as a rival power, a foreign allegiance, a danger to national unity. The consequences were brutal. Under Elizabeth I, Catholics were seen as potential traitors. Under James I and Charles I, suspicion only deepened. The Gunpowder Plot of 1605, led by Catholic conspirators, sealed the association of Rome with treachery. By the time James II, himself a Catholic, ascended the throne in 1685, the nation's fears reached their breaking point. His attempt to promote Catholic rights triggered the Glorious Revolution of 1688. James was overthrown, exiled, and replaced by Protestant monarchs William and Mary. From that day, the law was merciless. The Act of Settlement 1701 declared that no Catholic could inherit the throne, nor could any heir marry a Catholic without losing their place in succession. For over 300 years, those rules remained. They were not just religious boundaries, they were the foundation of Britain's monarchy. And yet Catherine crossed them. Her conversion in 1994 was not illegal, she was far from the line of succession, but it was symbolically explosive. A Windsor embracing Catholicism was no longer treason. It was personal conviction. A personal faith, public consequences. Catherine never pretended her decision was political. When asked why she chose Rome, she answered with striking simplicity. She longed for structure, clarity, and certainty. I like to know what's expected of me. "I like being told, 'You shall go to church on Sunday,'" she once explained. Those words reveal not rebellion but a hunger for guidance. Yet in the palace, even the most personal choices reverberate. A duchess's conscience becomes history. A funeral becomes a statement. Her requiem will be the first Catholic funeral for a Windsor in over 300 years. It will be watched not just as a farewell but as a test. Can the monarchy, bound by centuries of Anglican loyalty, embrace the faith once cast as its greatest enemy? Charles and the Crown's dilemma. At the center of this drama stands King Charles III. For him, this is not an abstract issue. Catherine was his aunt, a woman he respected deeply. Yet as monarch, he carries the title of Supreme Governor of the Church of England, sworn to defend the Protestant faith. Approving a Catholic funeral under his reign is both an act of personal compassion and a statement of political symbolism. To some, Charles's decision proves that the monarchy can adapt. Britain is no longer a purely Anglican nation. Its people are diverse in faith and belief. By honoring Catherine's wishes, the king shows a monarchy willing to reflect the nation it serves. To others, however, the gesture feels dangerous. The Crown's identity has always been tied to Protestant exclusivity. If that boundary weakens, what remains of the institution's uniqueness? The wider family. Inside the family, Catherine's death is felt in quieter ways. She was not a constant presence on the balcony or in the spotlight, but she was respected as a woman of principle. Her marriage to the Duke of Kent endured decades of quiet loyalty. Her devotion to music was more than a hobby, it was her way of giving back. She supported charities not for recognition but because she believed service was duty. Her conversion, while private, became her defining mark. It is telling that in her final wish, she did not bend. She wanted a Catholic requiem, and the king will give her one. The arrangements are more than protocol. They are an acknowledgement of love, respect, and individuality inside a family often accused of crushing personal freedom beneath duty. The echo of history. Catherine's requiem will not be a revolution in law. The monarch must still remain Protestant. The heirs to the throne cannot convert. Succession rules remain intact. But in perception, the event is seismic. Compare it to Edward VIII, who in 1936 abdicated to marry Wallis Simpson. His personal choice tore the monarchy apart, leading to a constitutional crisis. Catherine's choice, by contrast, has not destroyed the monarchy. But it has forced it to stretch. It has created a moment where faith, long treated as an institutional threat, is instead honored as personal truth. This shift marks a new chapter. The monarchy is no longer an immovable rock. It is a body willing to bend for conscience. That bending may ensure its survival or, in the eyes of traditionalists, mark its weakening. A question for the future. What will history make of Catherine's funeral? Will it be remembered as a sign of compassion in a changing age, or as the first crack in the wall of Anglican exclusivity? The truth may depend less on law and more on perception. Monarchies do not survive on force alone. They survive on meaning, on the belief that their rituals reflect something eternal. Catherine's requiem disrupts that eternal image. Yet perhaps that disruption is the monarchy's salvation. In a world where institutions face constant scrutiny, rigidity can kill. Adaptation may keep the crown alive. Catherine, who lived in humility, may in death have given the monarchy a lesson, that survival lies not in denial but in compassion. The final reflection. Her life was not defined by titles, though she carried them. It was not defined by power, though she lived near it. It was defined by music, by charity, by conviction. And in her final act, it is defined by faith. When the Catholic prayers rise at her requiem, they will not only mark her farewell but echo through centuries of conflict, suspicion, and defiance. For the first time since England overthrew a Catholic king, a Windsor will rest under Rome's blessing. Catherine's story is both personal and historical. It is the tale of a woman who chose clarity over conformity, and in doing so, forced the monarchy to bend. Her death is sorrowful, but her funeral is revolutionary. It is proof that even in the heart of the most rigid institution, individuality endures. The monarchy will survive this moment, as it has survived wars, revolutions, abdications, and scandals. But it will survive differently. Catherine has left behind more than memories. She has left a crack of light in the wall of history, a reminder that conscience, even in Windsor, cannot be silenced.